Hello and welcome to Charm Citizen. I am your host, the Charm City Maven, and today we are here with Ashlee Johnson. Ashlee is a good friend of mine, so this is going to be a really interesting podcast. There are no rules that say that you can't interview your friends, so that is what I am doing today. Hey, Ashlee.
Hey, I'm excited to do this with you.
Yes, I'm so excited. You are my favorite business friend. You
Yes,
have taught me business in so many different ways.
I think I can agree with that the other way around. You being my favorite business friend.
Yes. Yes. All right. But we should probably tell the business, I mean, we should probably tell the people how we got started because it starts not quite with business. Well, it was a business for you or like an endeavor for you, but that wasn't exactly how we started. So
Yeah,
do you want to tell a story?
sure. So the first time I met Kendra was at Red Emma's. If you aren't from Baltimore, that is a pretty well known uh employee owned cafe. It used to be on
Mhm.
North Avenue. I was hosting breastfeeding classes, not classes, breastfeeding support groups in
Right.
their community room. And she came to one of the support groups, and that was what, like 10?
It was the 9.5 years ago because Atlas is about 9.5. So yeah.
Nine and a
Yeah.
half years ago.
Does that mean we get to celebrate 10 years of friendship next year?
Oh my gosh, we do.
Hey,
That's
yeah.
wild.
I think that we get to do that. Oh my goodness, the 10-year anniversary of friendship. That is so adorable. So
Yes.
we're definitely doing it now, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
That's gonna be fun.
Well, so yeah, so that's how we met, guys. So I was a second time mama who was looking for community, board on maternity leave. I already knew how to breastfeed. So I breastfed my first and I just decided to, like she said, pull up the red MS, saw that I don't know where you would have posted. I mean, I guess maybe Facebook, but like I really don't know how I found out about it. Because I wasn't
Yeah.
like a Red Emma's customer per se at the time. They serve vegan food. It's not really my thing. So I don't know.
Facebook. It was probably Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, so I showed up. Not only did I show up, I also showed up and there was another person that I also knew there. So like a friend of a friend who also kind of sort of was a neighbor. So I just wanted to put that out there, like in terms of community. You and I have been talking a lot about how we have built community like organically and
Yeah.
how like this isn't something that we have to start from one with in this era of our businesses because
Yeah.
we've done just that just by showing up and being ourselves.
Yeah, that I think it's crazy. I've been reading this book, and one of the things they suggested was identifying your top values, and only pick two. And I realized my top values are freedom and community. Like
Mhm.
everything that I do is really based off of like those two things.
Isn't that radically black? Like, I don't know if you can be more radically black than that to be like, these are the things that you want freedom and community. And of course, I'm obviously here for it, but that is amazing. What book is this?
During Leadership by Brene Brown.
Oh, yes, that is radically black. I love that because that is what you want. Well, our ancestors have done enough, if they not. They,
They've done more than enough, and I yeah, I just want to be around my people, and I want to be able to
Mhm.
do whatever I want to do. Like, and not in a selfish way, but really in a I want to make decisions that are the best, not that are only necessary.
Right.
So,
And so it can't be selfish because here's the thing. You said both community and freedom. So you can't be a part of community if you're not willing to serve others.
yeah.
So it's just impossible. So no matter who it is, I guess like in your case, well both I guess fully get into it, but at least initially it was breastfeeding mothers. So you are serving the community and the community is showing up for you in return. So you're
Yeah, for
providing
sure.
value. That
Trying
was
to.
that was the book, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. All right. So tell the people, what do you actually do? This isn't a business podcast, but there's no way that you and I are not going to talk about business this entire time.
So I'm really a social entrepreneur. I focus mostly in the maternal health space, so connecting pregnant moms to doulas and midwives, and also sharing information in that space so that moms can make informed decisions about their health and well-being as a birthing mother. And then also I do a lot of small business consulting and helping entrepreneurs find funding, set up their marketing, create websites, that type of stuff, and really kind of like let the world know who they are and what they do in order to generate funds, whether that's sponsorships, grants, or just through customers. And my training is as a communications manager, and so all the things that come with that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I have an idea. I have a thought. I wonder, as I was listening to you talk, and of course, I know the journey of being, of attempting a business, but realizing that communications is something that most businesses always lack and like need the most. And it's like hypercritical that you have this component. In addition to actually providing a good quality product or service, like you really need to communicate it. And a lot of people forget about that part, but the way that media is changing in such a way like that now has to become like the primary portion of the business that you pay attention to. And
Yep.
it almost makes you have to throw away any traditional ideas that you do have about business acquisition or like even selling services and goods in a way that we haven't had to make that pivot before. Even as you're talking about different revenue sources and everything for the business, that's not always so clearly laid out for people of like recognizing, no, this is a part of the business structure and the revenue stream.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people just think like they have that mentality of if you build it, they will come. And it's like, if they don't know about it, how can they come? Right. And that's where communications and marketing really kind of hones in on it. So I tend to see it as like there's two sides to business. There's like the doing the actual work, and then there's the telling people what work you're doing and how they can tap into it. And there aren't very many people who are skilled at doing both,
No.
right?
All right.
Like, especially at the same time. And I think that's one of the struggles, for a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, right? Like, as I'm
Mhm.
helping other people communicate their visions and their work, I struggle in my own business of merging those two things. And it's mostly capacity. Like,
Yeah.
really only having the capacity to do one of those things at a time. But yeah, it's super important. And also what I've learned is sometimes establishing the communications part of it first and like creating systems for that actually makes more sense. Well, I shouldn't say makes more sense. In some cases works really well as opposed to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, or maybe
Yeah.
they're equally. It's just like you have to choose. Like, do I start with just doing the work and then people talk about it and more people know about it and then I can
Right.
lean into the communications part of it? Or like, do I pre-sale and talk about the communications and tell
Yeah.
people what I'm going to do in the next 3 months and garner excitement around it and then do the thing? So,
Yeah. I think the common conversation that we have about businesses, particularly in the Black community, is the idea of being the CEO of a company, but not the idea of maybe you actually need a co-founder. And you know where we do that and talk about that in? For marriage,
mm,
for two-parent homes. Like, so we recognize like those, like the big things that you had to tackle, like you need two people to do it. So I don't understand. I mean, I guess I do understand why. Because again, there's also like a scarcity of who can you have to build this thing with you. But it sounds like that's like the huge piece. Like before you do anything, you need to be on a hunt about who can actually go into business with you. At least, again, that's why you and I work so well. We're not in business officially, but we're able to bounce off each other
yeah,
in such a great way where it's taking the load off. At least
for
I know I
sure.
says it for myself. I've heard a
For
number of
sure.
no's, a number of, are you sure that you need to do that? Have you looked at it this way?
For
Not in a
sure.
crazy way, but like, yeah, like you need somebody who understands the business who can push you to, think of it a different way. And usually that's found with a co-founder.
I mean, it makes me think of the African proverb of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And
Hmm.
I think some people are really afraid of doing things in partnership and doing things in community because they may have had bad experiences working with people. They stole an idea or they didn't do their share of the work or whatever it may be. I mean, I've found that one, having like really direct communication with people of like, this is my capacity, what is yours, or like, these are my goals, what are yours, and being really
Hmm.
like upfront and having those hard conversations and treating it as if it's a marriage, right? Because essentially it is another version of a marriage. And so having that and like caring for this person as if they are a human and not just a worker bee,
Right.
and keeping in mind, especially in my area of work, maternal health, where a lot of times I'm working with other mothers, right? So we have a lot of things that we're trying to do. The capacity is limited, and so being really upfront about, this is what I have the capacity to do, this is what I care about, is really helpful in like establishing that foundation and like building on it.
Right. You're absolutely right. Let's talk about birth for a little bit. Tell me about how you came to the world of birth work.
So I got married September 13th, 2013.
I did not know that.
Yes. So like
Why Friday the 13th? It just
it just happened. It wasn't on purpose. It just
okay.
happened. And when I realized it, I was like, oh snap. Like, okay.
All
But
right.
then exactly 9 months later,
Hmm.
on Friday, June 13th, 2014, I had my son. And
Wow.
so Friday 13th is just like one of those things that's always been really special to me in a positive way.
Yeah.
But being pregnant with my first child, he was a honeymoon baby. I was like, I'm afraid of needles. I don't like hospitals. So we're going to have to figure something else out when it comes to having this baby. And so my husband did some research. He found a birth center that used to be in Annapolis in Maryland. And so we started going there. And it was 50 minutes away from our home. But I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like, we're gonna do it. And they required us to take birth classes. And so I ended up taking, both of us ended up taking Bradley birth classes. And for those who aren't familiar, it is basically a college course. It's 12 weeks, and every week you meet in somebody's house, whoever the teacher is, it's usually their house,
Hmm.
with like 5 other couples, and it's an hour and a half to 2 hours long each week. And you have like homework to do when you leave, not like necessarily paperwork,
Yeah.
but you have activities you have to do when you go home. And it's so much information. And I ended up having an out of hospital water birth with my son. It was an amazing, absolutely amazing experience. And I was like, I want to do this again. And how come I've never heard other people's experiences describe like what I experienced? And so from there, I
Facts.
was like, I want to be a childbirth educator. I want to teach people how to do what I just did, because everybody deserves this type of experience. And that's it just has snowballed from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I took the Bradley method class as well for my first. And like you said, it definitely was a college course. And like you said, it made me feel like, well, I ultimately had a beautiful birth, not a home birth. I mean, not a birth center birth. I did have a hospital birth, but it was still a natural birth, med free, quick labor. I felt completely prepared. All of the things, like 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, and was the most simultaneously the most hardest and most empowering thing that I had ever done in my young 25-year-old life up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And much like you, I wanted to tell other people about this experience that they too could share, because I had not heard outside of my mother, and of course I tell you this all the time, but like outside of her, I had not heard anybody else saying that this type of birth experience was possible, one that does not end in trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's really unfortunate. And at that point, I didn't know all of the statistics. I didn't know where the United States ranked when it comes to maternal health and maternal mortality and morbidity, and even all of the infant statistics as well, right? I didn't
Hmm.
know that. I just knew I didn't want no needle. I didn't want to be in a hospital. And so after becoming like a birth worker and getting into maternal health and then learning all of those statistics, I was like, oh, yes, we people need to know that this is possible, that birth in and of itself is inherently safe, but it's all the things that we add to it and put around it and interfere in the process that makes it unsafe. So
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. And I think we need to start standing 10 toes down on that statement that it is dangerous. It's dangerous specifically for Black women. And there is a way that we can course correct. Really, if only we talk to our community and the people who have already done the things that you actually want to do. If you want to have a healthy, happy, and safe birth, there are some people who have navigated those waters. There are some people who are not only backed by science and statistics, they're also backed by their lived experience. In any other space, we talk about lived experience, and we champion that as something that's valid to provide value to other people in their journeys. This is one of them. I think we need you. It's one where you have to teach the others. I only believe that I could do it if not from my mother's firsthand account.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in some ways that has been happening, but on the negative side of things, right?
Hmm.
Because when you are pregnant, everybody wants to give you their unsolicited advice and wants to tell you their horror stories, right? Which
Yep.
is like, why would you do that? But like, I will never forget, I was already probably maybe in my third trimester and I was excited. I'm like, I already knew what kind of birth I was having, where I was doing it, all this stuff. I was ready. And I had this lady at the bus stop that told me her absolute horror story. And I was like so freaking discouraged. And she like very much was like, I don't know why you would want to have a natural birth. Like, oh my God.
Uh,
And like I was really discouraged for a little bit, and then I met another lady and I told her my plans and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that is the best decision you can make. It's going to be
mhm.
absolutely amazing." And she like really encouraged me. And so I think we kind of have been in this cycle of telling people the really terrible stories. And
Mhm.
so people just kind of internalize that and they're like, "Well, birth is terrible." And so I'm just gonna have a terrible experience, and then you end up with people who are like, my birth plan is don't die, and it's like, whoa,
Right. Oh
like
my God. Right.
that's a given, and it's not a plan. And so, yeah, I definitely am encouraging folks who have had really beautiful experiences where they felt like um, they were respected in the process. They had some control over it. They understood how birth works and they were working with the process and they made intentional decisions to protect their experience and protect
Mhm.
their health and their baby's well being, to share their stories more.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Flipping over to back to the business side though, like you said, like the negative news usually gets the best PR. And so when you go into birth work, you have to do that much of a larger job to actually communicate the opposite. So how would you say that is kind of what puts you into the comms? I know, well, you have a background in comms actually, but like, is that the tie in that you figured that really needed to happen?
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. And it's been difficult because, like you said, like the negative stuff is more likely to get the press, right? That's when we hear about a woman, like the two stories that have gone viral in the last week or so, that
Hmm.
they were dismissed, they were ignored, they were kicked out of a hospital and then had a baby 8 minutes later, right? Those are the stories that everybody's talking about, not the
Right.
ones where mama had a birth at home and it was beautiful, and like those stories aren't really making the news, right?
Sure.
And so what I've definitely tried to do is like tell that story more of the positive and put it in perspective. And it has not been easy. It has not been easy. Um but you almost have to, what I'm learning is you almost have to tap into the negative and bridge a gap to the
Yeah.
positive, right? Like really tapping into those pain points that people have of don't die and be like, okay, well, how do we not die? It's not just hand over all of our rights and decision makings to the doctors, because the people, well, most births are happening in a hospital and therefore that's where the deaths are happening, right?
Right.
And most of them are happening with doctors, and therefore that's where most of these really traumatic experiences are happening. So it's like, well, how do we have the where are most of the really beautiful experiences happening, and what are people doing to do that? So really,
Mhm.
like, it's a fine line of like bridging that gap.
Yeah, it's a fine line. And one of the people who has done it the best is Ricky Lake and Abby. I always forget Abby's last name.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, but Ricky and Abby, but Ricky Lake of Ricky Lake, the talk show fame, and Ricky Lake
Mm-hmm.
of Baltimore fame for working with John Waters, also of Baltimore fame. John Waters, director. You didn't know that?
I don't. No, no, no. He was a part of the.
That is his. That is his work. That is his movie. So John Waters is a local director, Baltimore famous director. He did Hairspray. He did Little Shop of Horrors. He did a movie. I forgot Miss Divine. There's a movie that he had like so many movies. Like John Waters is like legit in the Baltimore and Hollywood ethos is like a mega savant in terms of
Okay.
not only just like sharing like the quirkiest stories. That's kind of what he likes to highlight, but then it really is also like the Baltimore-ish stories. You
Mm-hmm.
can see Baltimore in the essence of the work that he does. I'm about to fan out for a second. I'm sorry. I've been watching movies a lot, so I have been thinking about like this is how do I see these people in their work or like vice versa. So I definitely can see that about him. But anyway, I digress. So uh, Ricky Lake of Ricky Lake fame and of Hairspray fame. She was the executive producer and also inside of the documentary, which was The Business of Being Born. And the business that they're referring to is the medical establishment. So again, like who has the biggest media or the business that have the biggest media arm or have can sell the story, they're the ones who get to capture the market share. So that's kind of really what you're up against. Not even like the individuals who have their stories.
For
We're fighting
sure.
back.
It's a really interesting dynamic, right? Like there's
Mm,
and it's in all of maternal health, right? So even when I think about like on the breastfeeding side, right?
mm-hmm.
I just posted about a few weeks ago about Cardi B and the campaign that she has been doing with Bobby, which is a formula company.
What? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes. So Bobby is really strategic, right? And they create really problematic marketing. And they're really one of the only formula companies that targets breastfeeding women, right?
Mm,
And they do it from a standpoint of,
sometimes.
or you should have options. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how you feed your baby, just feed your baby. And like one of the things that I had posted about is Cardi B in part of the campaign, she says feeding it's like feeding your baby formula is not bad. What's bad is not feeding your baby. And it's like, who is not feeding their baby?
Wait, she did like a whole ad read? So this is
It's
like a
a
legit campaign.
it's yes, and it's spreads the gamut of maternal health stuff. So she talks about the statistics with black women. She talks about um
Mm.
it's so much.
Jocelyn Hernandez would never. I'm sorry, like Jocelyn Hernandez would never because she was the one who did Love and Hip Hop and she talked about her doula, having a doula, and showed us that process. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that. And I love
I
Cardi, but
mean,
oh my God.
I do too. And that was one of the things I was saying. Like, I'm conflicted because I want black women to get their money. I want black women to
Mhm.
be at the forefront of the conversation. But this is predatory, right?
Yeah.
Because you are literally, instead of educating black women who statistically have the worst or the lowest breastfeeding rates, right? You're like almost guilting them into it, like, don't feel bad if you need formula, and like also not sharing the other side of it of how harmful formula can be.
Hmm.
And in the maternal health space, it's very what's the word, prickly. I'll say prickly because anything that you say that makes someone feel bad, it is seen as mom shaming, even if it's literally you just sharing a statistic, right?
Mm,
So if you
mhm.
say that formula and breastfeeding are not equal, you're
Yeah.
gonna get a whole bunch of people that's like, I did the best I could when I was breastfeeding. I couldn't get any sleep, or I had to go back to, like, you get all these personal stories. And it's like, listen, I feel for you. It's not your fault. It's literally
Right.
how our society is set up for moms to fail in this area.
Hmm.
But you have to be really careful because you're going to be deemed as a mom shamer.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
so
it's
it's good.
I think that it is really hard to get people to understand that systemic issues can have a very specific influence in your life. Maybe all of the systemic Lord, maybe all of the big, huge issues that take decades to fix won't occur in your lifetime, but you might get hit by one or two. So
Yeah.
in this case, it could be ability is not fair. That's not even what I'm trying to say. But the impact that it can have on your own physical body, the impact that it can have on your own where you live, how you live, all of
Yep.
those systemic issues can definitely play a part. You might not know which one it is. Motherhood is such a interesting time that we just generally don't talk about or educate other potential moms
Mm-hmm.
on in the first place. So, like you said, that's exactly what you were saying. Actually, the whole it runs the gamut of maternal health, which is maybe we should
Yes.
talk about that unique experience or that unique transition that a person makes in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think because of the whole mom shaming thing, that's why a lot of folks who have positive experiences don't say anything because they
Hmm.
don't want to be seen as a mom shamer. And it's like, why can you share your traumatizing experience and I can't share my really beautiful, like, amazing experience, especially if I was intentional about creating that experience that I wanted? And
Right.
I think that is also the piece of it that people get really in their feelings about, because a
Hmm.
lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times the folks who weren't really intentional about making sure they got the experience that they wanted, they end up having a experience that they do not want, and then they're like, I didn't know. Or but it's like, I'm sorry, right? Like, you
You could
could have
have.
known,
You
right?
could
Like,
have.
we one, there's one piece of it that, like, society sets us up for failure. But
Hmm.
then there's another piece of it where this is just an area in our life that we tend not to give a lot of attention to until it's too
No,
late,
no. Yeah.
right? Like,
It's almost like a taboo to kind of talk about anything that's relegated in the motherhood camp publicly. Like you can't do
yes,
it. Which is
it's
why,
insane.
yeah, sorry. Which is why you and I, plus one other person, we had the Black Effect. Do you want to tell people what was the our project together?
Yeah, we were doing a podcast where it was really conversations between moms from different walks of life, different faith beliefs,
Mhm. Family status.
parenting styles, all that. Somewhat parenting styles, but really just talking about these very taboo, nuanced motherhood topics,
Hmm.
and just sharing a different perspective than what's usually talked about. And I think it
Right.
was a very millennial conversation, right? Like,
Huh? That's
very
true.
millennial, very like new age, very much pushing back on some of the ways that we were
Hmm.
raised. Yeah, it was good. And I
It
see
was
it coming
great.
back in the future.
I think that we should definitely bring it back. And I guess you said it was millennial, but it was also very much not prickly because, again, community, you can have these real conversations. There is room for nuance and there's room
Yeah.
for understanding. There are even some spaces that, or maybe it is, I think it could potentially be our millennialness and, or I almost never talk about the generation below us, but whatever the next generation is, maybe they're the ones that are like, you can't do this. This is, or want to shame people for having sharing their own experiences when it's good. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I also think that project was really interesting too, because and dynamic, because we were learning about each other as we were recording
hmm,
those things. So it was like a real take on each other's opinions about stuff, and like there was pushback, in different
Yep.
areas. They were like, I don't really agree with that. And I think that made for a really dynamic conversation because we had all just like become friends. Like it was fresh.
Yes.
Um, in terms of really like those particular conversations that we were having, and so that made it really dynamic as well.
Yeah, what sticks out for me is our conversation about education. And what really sticks out for me is how we have all made several different educational choices, like that were different from the ones that we initially set out and said that we were going to do. So, like, I cannot believe that I'm considering private school. Cannot. So,
Yeah, is I mean that goes back to that thing of like making decisions that are necessary versus
hmm
decisions that are best, and like how we get pigeonholed in it,
hmm
and you have to like, okay, well, I don't
right.
have all the things needed to make the best decision, so I have to just do what's necessary right now.
Yeah, these poor systematic issues, those things that get in the way because I don't want to do this. This
Right.
is, but like, what can you do? Well, no, now fast forward. So tell me about Black Birth Central.
Yeah, so Blackbird Central is the platform that I created to help connect moms to doulas and midwives, and also to just really expand the maternal health field, right? And to help Black women understand what our options are when it comes to maternal health. And I'm talking about on the mother side as well as the birth worker side, right? So at the end of the day, I believe and research supports that the answer to our maternal health issues is midwifery model of care. That we need more midwives, more folks having babies with midwives. And so that's really like the focus. How can I connect folks to midwives, and how can I get some of these doulas to become midwives? So, yeah.
So you have made a tool essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which is you've made a tool. You've made it easier for people to find the professionals that they actually need, and there's also a membership component as well.
Yes. So on the front end, you can search for a doula or midwife in your area, a Black doula or a Black midwife in your area. There's also a blog component that's sharing some of this information that we've talked about maternal health and these nuances to help folks make informed decisions. And then on the back end, there's a membership for birth workers to be able to put their business out there, put themselves out there, be a part of the directory, but also to connect with each other and to do like further learning. Like we have a monthly movie night where we're watching documentaries, things like The Business of Being Born, and we're debriefing together. Like we're talking about what stood out to us, what was surprising, what is it, all those types of things. And you'd be surprised, there are a lot of documentaries that touch on maternal health, and there are a lot created by Black folks. So we were really
I
diving
am
into
surprised.
those things. Like I have a list of probably like 25 of just ones created by Black folks, and more folks keep sharing them with me every time I host a movie night. And
Mhm.
then we're doing other things like starting in January, we have a midwifery series started where we'll be having conversations, like live conversations with current midwives and helping folks understand how they can become a midwife, right? Like, what are the different ways that you can become a midwife, the different credentials? What does it mean, like business wise? How much money are midwives making? Is it easy? Some folks believe that because Black midwives are in high demand, that means they're booked and busy without doing any marketing, which is not true for
Not
most
true.
people, right? So yeah, we're exploring those conversations, and I'm really like leaning into this community of birth workers to be like, what do you guys need? What are you struggling with? And let's learn about it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, what you're doing, first of all, is wonderful. And of course, I'm a huge champion of it. And then, two, I think what do we need to do? What I was really thinking about is the fact that there are people who approach women when they're well pregnant, but there has to be a better way to teach people before they get on the journey. Now, on the plus side of things, a lot of people are having children later. So I think there's
Yeah.
maybe a wider opportunity for them to get this type of education. I know previously there's some talks, and I do still agree with this method of like sharing this education at the middle school or high school level and then definitely the college level. But I'm
Mhm.
grateful that with the span of time and how things have been changing, that there's also another opportunity where a person can have the same type of education in their 30s and we're still catching them at a good opportunity, because education really is the critical point to, the health and safety and wellness of both the mother and the baby. But if we can just reach them at an earlier time and make it in an organic way.
The way we talk about like birth should be more regular, like when you have a shin problem.
Yes, it should definitely be regular. It shouldn't be taboo. We need to have these conversations, not just amongst women, but amongst men too. And
Sure,
that would make things
everybody.
that much, yeah, like literally everybody, because everybody has to experience, everyone has experience being born, and everybody needs to understand like this is a normal facet of life.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, two things I would say is one, I'm really hopeful because this generation that's after us, they are a lot less accepting of just of things that are terrible, but they're just the
mhm,
way they are, right? That we treat as if that's just how it is. There's a lot of them that are like, if it's terrible, I don't know parts, and how do I get around it? Or like, how do I figure out how to not be terrible, right? Like they will
yeah,
quit a job when somebody disrespects them. Like they
right,
and I had a conversation with a woman who's probably 10 years younger than me, so she's the next generation, and what she said to me is, I want kids, but I want to go to therapy first, and I want to learn about like
right,
what does pregnancy look like and how do I make it a joyful experience. And I was absolutely elated by this
yeah,
conversation because I'm like, I'm so glad y'all are thinking about this. And it's like, she's like, I don't want to like experience motherhood in a way that is stressful. And so there's a lot of people who are being way more intentional about like, how do I create the experience that I want? And is that experience possible? And if not, then I'm opting out. Right? You
yeah,
have a lot of folks that's like, okay, it looks terrible to be pregnant. It looks terrible to have a baby. It looks terrible to be a mom. So I'm just going to opt out. And I think that's okay too. Like, I think for some people that is true, right?
true.
Especially in our society where moms are not supported, women are not supported. So, yeah. And then on the other side of it,
Is the other side where people wind up having surrogates, and this becomes just yet another part of our dystopian future.
well, no, right? Because you still the people who are surrogates also they're
They are
having that
very.
experience. Like even if it's not their baby at the end of it,
Hmm.
like they're still having that experience of birth,
Hmm.
pregnancy, all those things. And so there's still a question of how do I have an enjoyable experience even though I'm serving someone else,
Right.
right?
Though I do have to wonder, how did they sell Twilight births?
So, okay, Twilight Burst, for those who do not know, and it's
Oh,
crazy because I just did a lot of research on this,
really?
right? So, Twilight Burst was when women were giving medicine. It was said to be like pain medicine and to help you not feel labor pains and to have an easier birth. Really, what it was a medicine that made you forget the experience that you had. And so they were giving women this medicine. They were strapping them to hospital beds. In some pictures of it, you would see them have a like a bag over, not a bag, but like a cloth over their
Okay.
heads so they couldn't see, and they would be left in a dark room to go through labor and to have their babies. And the reason why it was so big was one, because they weren't remembering it, right?
Hmm.
They remembered going to the hospital and leaving with the baby. They didn't remember any of the pain. They did
That
not
is
remember being
so
tied down.
crazy.
They didn't remember being left alone in a room, right? It also was this idea that like a very feminist idea of like, just because we're women, we don't have to experience pain. Like we could have pain medicine and like still have children and blah blah blah. But it was dangerous, right? Like women were dying from this, babies were dying from this. And then when photos and stuff were being released of what actually was happening, then it became like, oh, we should not do this anymore. And then you also had this resurgence of women who were like, I want to experience it. I want
Hmm.
I want to know what's happening. I want to like see my baby when they first come out. And so it was like those two things colliding that
Right.
made Twilight birth go away.
Hopefully to never, I mean, there's still some vestiges of it, I would say. Maybe that
Oh,
wouldn't
for
be
sure.
like the common statement, but hopefully I almost feel like we're in a precarious time of like the culture. And when I say culture, I'm talking about our American culture. Has the potential to radically change, in the mores that we thought that we had might not be the same anymore. And I think that in some ways, or in many ways, it's a natural evolution of any society. I just don't know what we're going to get. I just
Yeah,
don't like, that's the hard part. Like, I don't know what we're going to get. So it's an interesting time to say the least.
it is. It definitely is.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, one more thing before you go. Actually, it's a few more things. It's actually two more things. I definitely wanted to talk to you and wanted you to share about you being not only an entrepreneur, but a working entrepreneur, a mom, and a
Mm.
wife.
Oh
That's
my
a lot of
goodness.
things.
Yeah, I have a full-time job as a communications manager for a local nonprofit. And I'm the only person on my team. And so I'm doing communications for a organization that has over 40 employees in probably 5 different teams. Um, I am a mom of three, 11, 7, and 4 years old, um, a wife, and yeah, an entrepreneur. And I would say entrepreneur with a side hustle in there too, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny that you asked me this today because I was just, as I was reading a devotional, it was talking about systems, putting systems in place for you to be able to trust the process, right? And so I've been leaning into different systems, automation tools,
Hmm.
leaning into AI to write some of my blogs or like to at least get it started, leaning into some of Canva's automation tools to pull content from my blogs, things like that. And really being intentional about how I schedule out my days.
Hmm.
Trying not to overwork myself, like trying to do what's absolutely necessary and leave the optional things out of it.
Yeah.
And then also, I think setting boundaries has also been really powerful. Like setting boundaries with my family and being like, from this time to this time, I'm working on this. And so I can't do anything else. Or like we hired a nanny to come on Fridays to like clean our first floor and to watch our daughter because she doesn't have school on Fridays so that I could still work during that time.
Hmm.
So yeah, it definitely requires a lot of strategy, leaning into community, doing things in group projects as opposed to like just trying to do them on my own, and then utilizing the technology and the software that's available to do some of these things for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to make your life easier. If you want to experience all of it. What else would you add to your freedom bucket?
In terms of like what's important to me, really every aspect, like freedom in what I can say, freedom in where and how I live, freedom in how I parent my children, and financially, right? Like that is a really big motivator right now where like I have a lot of student loan debt. So I'm like, listen, I'm buckling down to pay this stuff off. Like we could be doing a whole bunch of stuff with this extra money that we get every month, but instead I'm paying off this debt because I see how it's like holding me back, right?
Right.
Like, I even had this thought of going to midwifery school and becoming a midwife. And when I talked to my husband about it, he was like, "I don't think it makes sense for you to go back to school when you have all this student loan debt." And I'm like, "You're absolutely right. That's not a smart decision." So what did I do? I created a plan to pay off all this debt so I can go back to midwifery school. So like
Look at that partnership.
yeah, it's like freedom is so important to me. And it's like
Yeah.
whatever is standing in the way of me being truly free in every way, it has to be torn down. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ashley. Tell the people where they can find you. Tell us what you're up to today. Give us all the good stuff.
So I am pretty much on all social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest. I'm getting more into YouTube, but everything is at Black Birth Central on all of it. My website, blackbirthcentral.com, my email, blackbirthcentral@gmail.com, right? Everything is consistent. And right now, I'm really focused on making those connections between moms and doulas and midwives. If you are looking for a doula or a midwife, go to blackbirthcentral.com and use the directory. If you are a birth worker, go to blackbirthcentral.com and become a member so you can join us for the movie nights, join us for the midwifery series. There's a bunch of business resources in there as well, like how to build your business, how to do messaging, how to make like Canva stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff in there, and I'm always adding to it. Yeah.
We love it. Well, thank you so much, Ashlee. I will talk to you soon because you're my friend.
Yes.
All
Thank you,
right.
friend.
Thank you.